Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and we are back with another edition of What Have We Been Watching? Before we dive into what Matt and I have been watching, let us know down below. What movies have you been watching? Because I'm pretty sure this first one, you definitely saw this past week. Killers of the Flower Moon. New Martin Scorsese. But guess what? We're not going to talk about that here. We have a whole deep dive video where we go into the plot, spoilers and all, where Matt's thoughts, my thoughts are all there. Plus, we talk a little bit of awards process for that. So all Killers of the Flower Moon information is on that video.
That'll be coming out probably tomorrow, but we will talk about other movies because you saw BlackBerry this week, Dylan. Finally!
Yeah.
Finally!
I saw BlackBerry in the most cool way possible because at the end of the movie, there was a Q&A with the one, the only, Glenn Howerton. He was there and he talked for about like 15 minutes. It was a very interesting Q&A. It's probably the most low-key, laid-back Q&A I've ever been a part of. He was just chilling. He was just sitting there,
After
legs
all
crossed,
that
answering the questions. The funniest part of the Q&A was someone asked him, I thought it was a really good question. This was a more dramatic take, and after the strike, are you going to go for more dramatic movies or are you going to revert back to comedy? He's like, well, I only took this job because my agent said it looked good, and I read the script, and I thought it was one of the best scripts I read, so I don't like to pigeonhole myself and like box myself in, so I'll just go where the scripts go.
I want to hear a little bit more about this because I've been telling you to see this film all year long. So what's your general take on BlackBerry?
You can tell this movie was made for $5 million, but that's not a bad thing. You can tell it's not very fancy with a lot of the stuff, but it works. I think it starts off a little bit slow. I like once you break Mike and Doug away from each other while they're both funny by themselves. I don't think they really meshed well together, or maybe it's just younger Mike. As the story progresses, Glenn Howerton's, once they start mixing, that's when I think this movie starts to really take off. It loses steam once it hits the third act and they get separated again, but when Mike and Jim are together, this movie's hitting on all cylinders.
You know what they call a $5 million budget in Canada? The biggest movie we've ever had, basically. That is a big budget in Canadian independent film. I found this movie to be really funny. Maybe a part of me is biased because I'm so happy to see something like this coming out of Canada, and because I really do have an attachment to this director. Operation Avalanche rules, and BlackBerry, I think, is his best movie. It feels like such a great evolution in his career path. But what did you think about Glenn Howerton's performance? Because this is my favorite supporting performance of the entire year.
I thought he was a lot of fun. While I don't really see, like, early in the year, people like, oh, maybe he could be supporting actor of the year nomination. I didn't really see that in this performance. Maybe it was the hype built up to it months leading up to this movie, but I thought he was really funny. He added some good drama elements in there as well, and I thought he was definitely the highlight of the movie. He has a lot of quotables, and I thought the yelling was funny throughout too. Like, maybe it's kind of a one-note performance, but it's a very good one-note performance. And I mean, you may see I got my turtle shirt on. I can support Matt Johnson here and there. I like all the little turtle references throughout as well. And Jay Baruchel is someone who doesn't really get a lot of chances to be a leading actor, and I thought he did pretty good in the leading role. Like I said before, the first few scenes with him, I know he's playing the weird guy who can't form a sentence and is super nervous, but it felt very like one note in like a bad way. But it progresses over the course of the movie, and I really like the 180 of characters from the beginning to the end.
In real life, at the start of this movie, when he first got the idea for BlackBerry, he wasn't some nobody. You know, the way that they portray him as like...
He had money.
He had an Oscar.
Oh, wow.
He was very instrumental in digital editing in the 90s. That's
Good
before the start of this movie. And the start of this movie, they portray him as this, like, very awkward nobody.
That would have been cool to include a little bit, but I guess it doesn't really fit with, like, the angle of the character that you're going for. But I thought this movie was very well paced, too. Like, besides that third act when our two leads get separated a little bit and one's focusing more on the NHL and hockey and one's more focused on their actual tech company where they're not as involved as they once were, that's when it kind of slowed down. But for a while, this movie was on such a great pace, and I felt like it ended and then it kept going because you have to show the demise. Like, I thought, like, once they hit like the top ceiling, like everything went perfect. Like, oh, that's such a great note to go out on. But like, BlackBerry isn't what we know today. And I liked how they kept being like, oh no, Apple's going to fail. Apple's going to suck. Who wants a touchscreen? You need the keypad. You need the keypad. And then no one likes a keypad. Everyone thinks keypads are stupid.
Well, I never had a BlackBerry. Did you have a BlackBerry?
I never had a BlackBerry, but I know I had an Android that had a keypad on it.
I could never make it work. I don't even have
maybe I did have a
very
BlackBerry.
big
I don't
hands,
know.
but I can't type with it.
Same thing. I would click like 3 letters at once. I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, I don't get BlackBerries. But I just love the thing about this movie. We typically see this type of film like Air or The Social Network, where it's about the birth of an empire. But in BlackBerry, it's a rags to riches, back to rags story. I think it's very fresh and unique to see a take on that sort of corporate movie where in the end, everyone ends up basically...
Well, not everyone. Not everyone. Doug came out as one of the richest men in America, is what they said.
At the end, they lose their company. They keep the money, but they lose their company along the way. To move on to some films that I saw this week, I was running my film festival, so I got to rewatch a bunch of films this week. So I'll just run through very quickly 4 that I got to rewatch in their entirety, because for the most part, I was running around a lot. The Taste of Things, which I loved even more than the first time I saw it. What a delicious, incredible film. There's times in this theater where I could hear the crowd just gasp. Honestly, we'll talk about this later, but I think that there might be a world where this becomes our Drive My Car. I'm not going to say it's likely, but Drive My Car was not likely in October either. Maybe later in the year, once critics get a say, maybe it could be something more. Anyways, I also got to watch Four Daughters again, which is Tunisia's submission to the Oscars, likely documentary and international nominee. I loved this film on a second watch even more than I did the first time. It blew me away. The filmmaking prowess at show here is like, oh my God, how did they... Just the conception of this film is breathtaking. I won't say too much because, Dylan, I think you're going to be seeing this one pretty soon.
I hope I will.
What I will say is the audience that I screened it for was pretty shook by the end of it. Like, people were weeping at the end, and a few people had actually pretty viscerally negative reactions to it. They really did not like the film, a couple people, but for the most part, this was very well received by the festival audience. And on a personal level, I was just blown away by the level of creativity in filmmaking. Then, quickly, 2 Quebecois films that I got to rewatch. Red Rooms, which is a thriller. It's going to be released next year through Utopia in the States, which is very rare for a French-Canadian film. Red Rooms is remarkable. I had a few audience members describe it to me as the scariest film that they had seen in their entire lives. I think that might be a little bit too far, but Dylan, I can't wait for you to see Red Rooms. I actually think you're really going to like this one. So if it's not already on your watch list, put it on your watch list. It's about a woman who becomes very obsessed with a true crime serial killer case. This guy streamed his killings on the dark web, and so the movie follows her as she's trying to kind of uncover the videos that he released online. And meanwhile, she's also attending his trial every single day. And then on the other hand, I also loved Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person, which, is that a great title or what, Dylan?
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, but it's a great title. It's so good. It's like Wednesday meets Let the Right One In. It's got that kind of teen charm to it, a little bit of gothness to it, and it's also just a really well done, very well shot vampire movie. It reminds me a lot of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, just in the style of shooting, but it's a much more typical, very cutesy comedy. I don't know if this will ever be released in the United States, but on a second watch, I loved it even more than I did the first time I watched it. So yeah, those were 4 movies I got to rewatch this week that I was really, really happy to get to see a second time.
And thing with basically everything I did this week, I watched another movie that I missed since initial run that I've heard a lot of people say, go watch this, because I saw Theater Camp, and like BlackBerry, I liked it. Did I love it? No, but it was very fun while watching it. Ao, as everything, is hilarious. I wish she was in this more. And I thought the ensemble here was really good. The kids were phenomenal. We talk about youth performances. All the kids in this movie knew what they needed to do and really delivered, whether it was comedy or drama or singing or dancing. They just checked off all the boxes. And this is definitely one I could see myself wanting to rewatch again somewhere down the line if I just need something fun in the background. The needle drops here were great. That Post Malone thing at the very beginning was like the highlight of the movie. I thought the star of the show was Jimmy Tatro, who plays, I guess, the head of this whole place. And I just love the crypto, the frat bro of it all. Like, come on, dude. And his little hat pushed up.
One thing I'll say about theater camp, I worked at a theater camp as a teenager. I've met all of these people. They feel so familiar to me. And I got such a kick out of this film just from knowing who these people are. Having gone to camp with people exactly like them or worked at camp with people exactly like them. Such a blast of a movie. Oh my God. Anyways, the next movies that I want to talk about, I'm going to do more than one again, because another movie I got to see at my festival again was Hundreds of Beavers, which I saw at TIFF and raved and raved and raved about. And I only have more raves. Upon rewatching it, I think this might be one of my favorite movies that has ever been made. And that's high praise.
Wow. Yeah.
It's very high praise. I have not laughed that much in a theater in ages. In fact, I was laughing so hard that I started coughing, and then I started coughing and it tasted metallic, and I'm like, am I laughing so hard that I'm coughing up blood? Maybe. I don't know. But it was disconcerting, and for a moment, I thought I was going to laugh myself to death. I would have been
Imagine
sad,
the headlines now. Festival programmer laughs himself to death
Laughs
at
himself
funniest
to death.
movie of the year.
In preparation to rewatch Hundreds of Beavers with the festival, I actually went back and watched this group's previous movie this week because it's like 60 minutes long when I'm tired all the time but still want to squeeze in a movie. I got to watch the Lake Michigan Monster, a wild movie. It's so low budget. It feels like it was made for like $2,000 total. For the most part, it's like 4 people on a beach, just like looking at the water, and the only set dressing is like a plastic table with a cardboard sign with Sharpie on it. It is one of the most absurd films that I've ever seen. It follows a sea captain who's trying to avenge his father's death because a sea monster killed his father, and the sea monster lives in Lake Michigan. The film follows him as he assembles a ragtag group, including Sean Shaughnessy, the weapons expert, and a character named Nedge Pepsi. This movie is so much fun, and if you like cult classics or weird movies, you need to see Lake Michigan Monster. I love independent movies where you can tell that it's just made with so much love, more love than money, and this is one of those.
From one cult classic to another, I finally watched Martin Scorsese's After Hours, and I'm not going to rave about it as much as the movie that you just talked about because I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great, and like everyone was saying, I see where the praise comes from, but to me, it's kind of boring, a little bit all over the place, and like one thing would happen, and then something that would happen be a little bit more cool, and they kind of forget about that thing to go do something else. I heard someone one time say, it's kind of like Beau Was Afraid, and I can see that. I can definitely tell this is not a movie written by Martin Scorsese, just directed by him. But it wasn't a bad watch. It had some fun, interesting moments, but overall was not one I would probably go back. A little tease for Scorsese's tier list. This may be near the bottom for me.
Controversial thing for me too, I also don't like After Hours. I've only seen it once, and it was years and years ago. I do need to go back and see it again. I don't feel confident that I actually think this is near the bottom of my Martin Scorsese list. Honestly, I feel vindicated to hear that, but it makes me feel like I need to go back and rewatch it even more.
It's only 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's short. I don't know if boring is the word that I'd use for it. Anyways, to wrap up this video, I also watched a Scorsese movie for the first time this week, being Cape Fear. I loved it. It's campy. Robert De Niro is fantastic. What I loved most about Cape Fear was the way that they used the music, and I think it was the same music that was in the original classic film. Oh my God, it's such good music, and it's so effectively used, and I think it elevates Scorsese's filmmaking. There's also some really interesting split diopter shots. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't feel like typical Scorsese. He's going so far in a film noir direction. It feels totally unlike anything else he's done, but it still has that sort of Scorsese energy and flair to it. It's 90s Scorsese at his very best, and that's when I think his career had the most energy. His films were so packed with just like hunger. It's not like top tier Scorsese for me, but it is a goddamn great film. The one thing I will say though is I've recently gotten into The Simpsons. You know, I've actually like sat down finally and started watching from season 1 instead of just like catching reruns on TV every once in a while. And it is funny that the music, they just used the Cape Fear music in The Simpsons to represent Sideshow Bob. Anytime that music was playing during the movie, I was just like, oh my God, it's Sideshow Bob. And oh, he's riding on the bottom of the car? Huh, wow, that's Sideshow Bob. Anyways, what are you planning to watch this week, Dylan? You got a busy week
Well,
ahead.
I do have a busy week. So my film festival, Virginia Film Festival, ranges from Wednesday until Sunday. My hope is to hit 13 movies, those being highlighted by Maestro, American Fiction, May, December, some other stuff probably sprinkled in there. You'll have to come back. Honestly, don't even come back. Just go down below, click subscribe, like, comment, stay involved, because we're going to have vlogs come out for everything that I see coming up this weekend. And if I finish work early enough tomorrow, I might venture out to, add a little extra movie to my film festival and go see Foe. I've heard it's bad, so maybe I won't see it, but if I don't see it tomorrow, I probably will never see it. So, Discount Tuesday!
I'm really excited to hear what you think about some of these Virginia Film Festival movies, specifically American Fiction. I really want to know what you think about it. But for me this week, I'm definitely going to be catching Anatomy of a Fall. I'm definitely going to be catching The Killer, which I'm really excited to see both of those movies in theaters. And aside from that, I think I'm going to try to watch My Own Private Idaho by Gus Van Sant this week, as well as classic Best Picture nominee Bugsy. Now that my festival's done, I'm going to get into some older stuff, go back and watch some classics, treat myself a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you hear here, please drop a subscription. We are posting movie content every single day for the most part. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.